Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Halfback Dynasty, episode 11. No Looking Back, part 2. My name is Brendan. We are joined today with our co-host, Tyler. Tyler, how the heck you feeling, my man?
What's up, Brendan? I'm feeling all right, man. You got Hoodie B back in the house. I like to see that. Hoodie B's kind of become a legend in the ESPN league already, so I'm doing okay, man. It's been a week. How about you?
Yeah, we're grinding. We're grinding. You know, we're in the playoffs still across a few leagues. The anxiety is through the roof. I'm just so eager for football tomorrow. I'm eager for football on Saturday, which make sure you set your lineups. There are some Saturday games. But Tyler, I'm happy to be alive, man. At my age, at 24, when you wake up, it's a good day.
24, man. I got 12 years on you, man. So I must be feeling good.
There you go. Especially with that fresh haircut. My goodness, man, you're looking slick as ever. I love it. I love it. So cool, man. We are actually going to have our first ever part two to an episode. Last week, we talked about a lot of the rookie running backs, some younger running backs in the game. We wanted to touch on a few more today and see if we can dive into a couple young wide receivers, evaluate them, get our opinions on where their value stands in the future, how well we think they will be, if they will bust, all that good stuff. But of course, just like every other episode, let's recap the week. Week 14 was for sure another week to remember. A lot happened, Tyler. A lot of teams in fantasy got bounced, or they either upset or they made it through. So first up, the Eagles stunned the Saints 24-21. My goodness, who would have thought the Saints would have lost to the Eagles? The Eagles look like straight trash. What did you see out there that kind of stood out to you, man?
It's amazing when you bring in a quarterback change that has a much different skill set than the one you've been playing. I'm going to focus more on the dynasty assets for the Eagles instead of the Saints. I mean, I feel like every week somehow the Saints make it into our recap or something, Brendan. So I think everybody knows where we stand on the Saints. But
Mhm.
looking at the Eagles, man, we've talked about it as well that Wentz, his contract makes it a little tricky heading into next year. But based on what we've seen, I truly do think Jalen Hurts is going to be the QB come next year. I think he's got a unique skill set. I think he'll get to be a better thrower. Obviously, he can rush, man. He put up over 100 yards. So he's got a great skill set, an interesting skill set. Obviously, Miles Sanders with a new QB looked as advertised. I mean, he broke off an 80-plus yard TD run to the house. Looked fantastic in this game. And obviously, Sanders, his value was through the roof coming into this year, and through injuries and just a horrendous offensive line slash offensive system, he's been a little disappointing, but definitely has shown flashes when he's been on the field to do. So great asset moving forward. And as far as the passing goes, again, I think Hurts is their QB next year, but Rager and Goddard are the players to own on this team, in my opinion. Outside of Sanders, everybody else, Alshon Jeffrey, Ertz, Fulgham, I don't know. I just those two are the guys to own. Obviously, Rager's had a very slow start, but hey, not every rookie can be Justin Jefferson.
Do you think that Miles Sanders will have more opportunity to succeed and excel with Jalen Hurts under the gun?
I do. I'm not going to compare him to Lamar Jackson, but I almost think they're going to run that kind of system that teams are going to be so concerned with Jalen Hurts running the ball that it's going to open up lanes for Sanders. And I think regardless, moving forward, it'll be better than what it was. It's crazy what happened to Wentz. I mean, Wentz looked like the next big time dynasty QB, maybe what, 3 years ago. And then he got hurt. He's had injuries, and that team's just a mess. I'm not saying it's 100% Wentz, but Hurts obviously brings a different component to their offense, which sometimes that's what you need. You gotta be able to. We've talked about it 100 times on this show, Brandon. You got to be able to move as a quarterback.
Hmm. Yeah, that traditional pocket style QB, it's a lot more rare to see nowadays. The guys that do that are the ones who are currently legends, if you will. Aaron
Right.
Rodgers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. Then everybody who has come into the league recently, the ones excelling are the QBs that can get out of pocket. They know when to run the ball. You know, Patty Mahomes. Oh my goodness, Patrick Mahomes. Put some respect on it. Lamar Jackson. Heck, even Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, the difference between him and Nick Foles. Nick Foles has concrete feet, stays in the pocket, gets sacked. Trubisky can get outside a little bit, make some plays. These defensive edge rushers and the defensive tackles, so any defensive linemen, linebackers, blitzing, they are so good nowadays that the only way to negate that is to get out of the pocket. I agree with you. Very difficult for Sanders to have less production compared to what he had this year. But one thing I'd like to see is hopefully Jalen Hurts is willing to dump the ball off. You know what I mean? Like I hope Miles Sanders, because he's a pass catching back in my eyes, like a few screen passes here and there, little scat back action, and I think the opportunity's there. Hopefully, the Eagles invest in some offensive linemen this offseason, and the team could be better than it was before. Tyler, I'd like to point out, I say this almost every show. I basically traded DK Metcalf away for Miles Sanders in the big league, like week 3, week 4. Been pretty salty with that trade, basically the entire season. Not gonna lie. And I've started Miles Sanders, I'm pretty sure, like every single week this regular season. Of course, then week 1 of the playoffs, first round, I bench Miles Sanders, and he gets 2 touchdowns, goes for over 100 yards. Luckily, I squeaked out a win, but my goodness, it was a nail biter, and I was freaking out at myself, dude. How could I bench Miles Sanders? It was awful.
Yeah, you were texting me down the stretch there saying just that. And hey, man, you still got through. I say it to everybody, start your best lineup. You know, given that Miles Sanders, his talent level, regardless of what he's done, you got to put him in, man. You got to roll your best lineup. And if you lose with your best lineup, like I did, you lose with your best lineup, you know. Um, kind of recapping ours, you know, you squeaked through by 2 points. I lost by 1.5, and I had a combined, what was it? I want to say 7 points from Justin Jefferson and Chris Godwin to lose by 1.5. Just brutal, but hey, man, that's fantasy, you know. But I can hang my hat on the fact that I started my best lineup, and hey, let's blow it up now. It's not working.
Hey, at least you have legit like the best future wideout group. I mean, you know, we can make a whole episode about the guys you have on your roster. So you have a lot to look forward to. And, you know, at least maybe now you can't be disappointed if you got bounced in the second round. So it's all in good faith, right?
Hey, it's over, man. You look forward to next year. It is what it is, and hey, whatever. You know, just another
Whatever.
season down.
I
Yeah, just
like
another
it.
season down, man.
I like it. I like it. Put it in the books. All right, cool, man. The last game or the next game, I guess, that we want to recap. The Bills beat the Steelers. Gave the Steelers their second straight loss. Beat them 26-15. That was a pretty good game. I mean, it was intense. Two pretty good teams matching up. Offenses are good. Defenses are good. I thought the Steelers were going to come on top. I really thought that, or come out on top. I thought that Big Ben was having a pretty decent season. I'm actually sad that they lost 2 games. I was sad when they lost the previous week as well. I really wanted a team to go 16-0. I actually thought that'd be pretty dope to see because it rarely ever happens. But I'm telling you, man, outlook for the future, outlook for right now, the present. The Bills look pretty dang good, man. Stephon Diggs looks super good too. First receiver this season to 100 receptions. Tyler, I know you don't like that guy, but what's it going to take for you to get back on board with Stephon Diggs?
Hey, man, Diggs is a great player. He's always had massive upside. It's just been the consistency factor with Diggs that I've always thought he was overvalued. And hey, maybe that's totally different with the Bills. Look at Amari Cooper had huge consistency issues his last year and a half in what was Oakland. That completely changed. You know, change of scenery is big for guys. General thoughts coming out of this one. We've talked about it before. Obviously, Josh Allen looks like a legit QB moving forward. Great asset. Looking outside of QB, I feel like we talk about QB a lot. Connor and pretty much all the Steelers RBs look very risky to me moving forward. I still think maybe Snell gets his shot next year, but Snell's not done well with the chances he's had this year. So maybe McFarland is the most interesting, but I kind of wonder if Pittsburgh's running back is not on their roster. Sticking with the RBs, I think Buffalo RBs are risky. I don't think Singletary's done enough for that to be his job. I think Zach Moss gets more looks next year as kind of being a more traditional running back. So we'll see that. As you mentioned, Diggs, Johnson, and Juju at times have looked. Juju at times has looked solid. Johnson and Diggs have looked very good. Obviously, most of the season. Of that group, I think Juju is probably the shakiest because I don't think he'll be back in Pittsburgh, and I think he will be headed towards free agency. And who knows where he lands? Kind of the biggest question to me on the wide receiver core in Pittsburgh is James Washington. What does he do next year? Does he make a jump next year? And kind of circling back to your initial point, Brendan. I'm gonna the Gator Sens in the ESPN league, man. Counting playoffs, I'll go 16-0 for you next year, just so you can have it. I'll rip through 13-0 in the regular season, and then rip off 3 wins. That's 16, baby.
Wow. It's not gonna happen because you're gonna play my team at least once. So.
Well, plus I'm gonna blow it up. So everybody I trade, it'll be like, man, if I just kept my team, kind of like last year, I probably would have won the title.
Oh, tough. It's kind of funny. I think that the Steelers wide receiver group, I think they're all very good at different things. I think that Juju leaving is going to definitely benefit Deontay and James Washington. There's no doubt about that. It's pretty crowded right now. Either one of those 3 guys could get a lot of action or find the end zone a few times. And Chase Claypool, for that matter. I mean, we didn't even mention him. My goodness. You have 4 capable wideouts.
Right.
Tyler, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to kind of see what type of content we can put out in the offseason. I think following Juju this offseason will be very fun, trying to predict where we think he will land. I personally think he's going to go somewhere like Miami or Jacksonville, but we can definitely talk about that in the offseason. Right now, I'm scared to start Deontay Johnson because he had 2 quick drops this past week. And if you're in the playoffs, you can't start a guy who's going to drop wide open passes. Granted, it was really cold in Buffalo, so I think that definitely had something to do with it. But, Tyler, I really don't know what the Steelers are going to do this offseason. Are they going to blow up their own team? Are they going to draft a running back? I mean, they're capable. They're in the position to draft a high-end RB. Are they going to draft a quarterback? I don't know, man. It's so unpredictable right now.
Yeah, it's tough to say. It's going to be kind of an interesting offseason because there is some decently big names out there that are free agents. I read a report. I think it was just kind of a writer just writing a story, but he predicted maybe Juju and Godwin will land in the same place.
What?
If somebody just throws the house at a couple wideouts.
What? Who would do that?
Probably nobody. Like I said, it was probably more of a fantasy article, if you will. Yeah, I mean, who knows, man? Who knows?
Dude, that's crazy because it's so odd. I mean, I don't want to get off track too much here, but I feel like every roster has a couple pretty solid wide receivers, at least one solid. Bringing in 2, though, I mean, anywhere you look, okay, let's say the Packers, you bring in these 2 guys to the Packers. They still have Devontae Adams. You bring those 2 guys into Arizona. Well, you still have Christian Kirk and DeAndre Hopkins. You know what I could see? Oh, my God, I just thought about it. Bro, Houston. Oh, if both those guys went to the Texans to play with Deshaun Watson, they boost up their offensive line. My goodness. Tyler,
huge, man.
That would be so sick. In any redraft league, I would pick all Texans players, dude. That'd be so tight.
Yeah, man. And I guess we're going to stray off topic a little bit here, or keep straying. But, I mean, as far as Dynasty goes, are you buying Juju and Godwin before they land, or are you staying away from them? I can see Tampa franchising Godwin, quite honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced he goes anywhere.
Well, they're probably feeling they got robbed this year. I mean, he put up such a great year last season, and he was sitting out, I think, what was it, a broken finger? I think it was a broken thumb or something. Can't
Yeah.
recall off the top of my head, but you know, why would they let him walk if that makes sense? What
Sure.
is the franchise tag? Is it like average salary of the top 5 at your position?
Yeah. He would make a ton of money. I
Yeah,
don't know
that
what
is
their
actually a
cap
lot.
space is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it depends. Obviously, franchises make very questionable decisions or they make very unpredictable moves. So I don't know. I think Juju has a way more probable shot to move on from the Steelers than Godwin does
Oh,
from Tampa Bay.
definitely.
But dude, I don't know. I'm excited. I'm freaking pumped, man, because I would for sure buy Juju. I think his skill set is pretty dang good. I think he can only get better. Godwin, I don't know. This year really turned me off on him. Last year, I was decently turned off by Juju when he had his injuries and he lost Big Ben. But for some reason, this year with Godwin has felt more severe than last year with Juju. And I don't know why that is. Maybe I'm just a bigger Juju fan, but it's hard not to like Juju, man. Go follow him on YouTube. Watch his vlogs. The guy is a super nice guy. Chris Godwin, I don't know much about in his personal life, so I guess I don't like him, man.
Yeah, nah, Juju's super fun to watch. Yeah, like you said, his YouTube stuff is great. Godwin's he's just not very flashy. He's
Mhm.
not ultra fast. He's just not that guy. But I personally think a lot of the Buccaneers outside of Ronald Jones have been turned off in general. It's hard to argue what Mike Evans has done, but I think all their wide receivers look terrible this year. I think that's a product of Tom Brady spreads the ball around, and as exciting as it was that Brady went there, I mean, it's absolutely devastated Evans and Godwin as fantasy assets this year. It really has.
Mhm. A lot of people predicted that too in the offseason. I chose not to believe it. So I've actually benched Evans quite a few weeks in some of my leagues, and that's just the way it goes, unfortunately. But cool,
Sure.
man. Tyler, I'm excited to follow along with these big, heavy hitting free agents during the offseason. I think we'll have a lot of good content to talk about. But let's buckle down. Let's jump back into where we left off from last week and talking about these rookie running backs. So we named off a few big names, obviously CEH, James Robinson, Jonathan Taylor. I think we did Antonio Gibson, maybe one or two more. Uh, right now, I kind of want to talk about the guy you have first on the list. He's really pulled through, and that is Cam Akers. He has really been
Yeah.
showing out recently. What are your overall thoughts on him? Have you liked what you've seen recently? Is he shaping up to be the guy next season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he just shredded the Patriots on Thursday night, which was the only game you could watch, which always makes it a little bit more intense to see that kind of performance, if you will. Um, yeah, I think he is easily the guy moving forward. I think he's going to be more of a workhorse type back next year. Um, Malcolm Brown's a free agent this summer. I don't think he'll be back. Obviously, Henderson is signed, but Henderson kind of had his shot. He had a few good weeks and has nothing since. Cam Akers has always been considered crazy talented, crazy skill set. He has the natural perceived body of a lead running back. And you and I have talked about it on the show that, he always had excuses at Florida State behind a terrible line. He kind of had excuses at the beginning of the year that we talked about. Maybe he's just not that good.
Mhm.
But obviously, he's really turned a corner, which sometimes it takes rookies, a full season, half a season, whatever it is. This is usually the rookies that start slow when they start to hit. It's usually about this time of year. I think Akers is going to be a monster the rest of this year, and I mean the value is going to be through the roof in the off season. I think he's a mid-tier to high running back too. I think that's a fair hope for him. I wouldn't put him in RB1 category yet. You got to kind of earn that in
Mhm.
fantasy, I feel like. But I think he could also be a top 10 guy. I could see him going to an RB1 next year, that kind of status if he keeps going. He's a great pass catcher, always was coming out of college. So if they get him involved there, yeah, his stats, his value, all that's going to go through the roof. I think right now he's probably still a mid first type value, mid first plus. he was a nice buy low, but I think you've missed your opportunity to buy low on Cam Akers heading into next year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you stated. He's also on a team that can support a workload towards a running back, in my opinion. Just to give some perspective, about 3 weeks ago in week 12 is when we started to notice that he was playing at a higher level versus a pretty tough San Francisco defense. In week 12, he had 9 carries, 84 yards, averaged 9.3 yards per carry. He even found the end zone on the ground. 2 weeks ago, he had 21 carries for 72 yards and a touchdown. He even had a long reception for 22 yards, which was really nice to see. That was against Arizona, so okay defense. I mean, not the best, not the worst. And then you're right, he really turned on the Jets against New England. I mean, they trusted him. You notice that his carries went from 9 3 weeks ago to 21 2 weeks ago to last week, this past week, to 29. He got 29 carries for 171 rushing yards, 5.9 yards per carry, 2 receptions for 30 or 23 yards. I mean, that's pretty dang solid. And the fact that he reached almost 30 carries as a rookie running back, no matter how often he played or, if he was hurt or whatnot, that's really impressive, man. That's so impressive. And I remember hearing that there was thoughts that the coaching staff didn't trust him with the ball. And clearly they didn't, because when he came back from injury, weeks 5 through weeks 9, he only had 18 total carries, man. 18. I mean, come on, that's pretty bad. And now he's getting over 20 carries the past 2 weeks. Tyler, this is a guy I want to watch. This is a guy I want to for sure trade for early in the offseason. You got to do it early. Once picks start to finalize, once people realize their team is running back heavy, let's say NFL teams draft a running back or other trades happen, running back scarcity is a very real thing, and you have to get these guys early on in the offseason before teams realize they need all the running backs they can get. Tyler, he's definitely worth more than a first for me, because most people probably took him with like the 105, maybe 104. 104 to 106 is what I probably project him at. I would need a first and a pair of seconds, or a first and, I don't know, something else, a little bit more on top, because I just held him for a full year and he's breaking out a little bit. So
Yeah, I think that's fair, Brendan. And I forgot to include his stats. We obviously did that for everybody last week. He's got 109 carries for 528 yards, 2 TDs, 72 reception yards, and 1 TD. And yeah, I think it's fair to ask for a first plus. What stuck out to me in the New England game was just how he looked running the ball. He looked very natural, very calm, very smooth. He wasn't fighting it. He wasn't forcing anything. He just looked like he was completely in control, which I think's a good thing to see. Reminded me a little bit of Le'Veon Bell in his prime, is kind of how Akers looked on that
the
specific night.
icon.
Yeah,
That's
the icon.
cool, man. Cool. I'm really excited to follow Cam Akers. I really loved his landing spot. I was thinking if anybody ever went to the Rams during the draft, it would be a really, really high value RB throughout the fantasy football season. So, he's only going to get more
Absolutely.
opportunity. Malcolm Brown is getting phased out. Darrell Henderson had his shot, and he did okay. He produced okay a few weeks. But Cam Akers is starting to shape up to be the running back for the Rams. Moving forward, actually, too, another similar kind of, I guess, running back in a sense that we're starting to see a little more production, and that's DeAndre Swift. He started to really have a good string of a few games here. Didn't really come out too hot. I think his season was really roughed up by dropping that game-winning catch against Chicago in week 1, that touchdown catch when time was expiring. That was bad, man. I felt so embarrassed for him, dude. I don't know. You remember
Yeah, that
that?
was bad. Yeah, that was bad. Yeah, I felt really bad for
Yeah, yeah. I don't think even Bears fans enjoyed seeing that, even though the Bears won because of
him.
it. It was tough to watch, and then his confidence was probably shot, right? So first 4 weeks of the season, he only had 12 carries, 3 carries, 3-5-0-4. Then they had their bye week, got some rest. Then Detroit kind of gave him another shot. 14 carries in week 6, week 7, 9, week 8, 6, and then boom, he got 13 and 16. He started turning on the Jets a little bit. I think what was going on is that I think Detroit didn't trust him. And so they were booting up Adrian Peterson, which, I mean, AP's a legend. You can't knock that guy. He's a Hall of Famer. I don't blame him. But the issue was I didn't feel DeAndre Swift was compatible with AP because they were feeding AP the ball and giving him the goal line work, stealing touchdowns for DeAndre Swift. So now what's happening, though, is I think DeAndre Swift is showing he's very versatile, and I think the Lions are going to start trusting him a whole lot more. I don't think AP will be with the team. I think he's on a one-year deal. Don't quote me on that. But he is another guy who's shaping up to lead the backfield, just like Cam Akers. So I see a lot of similarities, although I think DeAndre Swift is a better raw talent at the running back position, and he could blow up next year. I'd be more than comfortable paying one plus to 2 firsts for Swift.
Yeah, absolutely, Brendan. I think that's fair. He's got 77 carries for 355 yards, 5 TDs, 301 receiving yards for 2 TDs. For me, Swift ranks up there among the top rookie running backs so far, regardless of his stats. Obviously, we talked about Gibson has produced extremely well, has shot up in value. CEH is tied to KC, which carries his value. Taylor and Dobbins are both in great running back systems. But, I mean, all that being said, man, Swift to me has Kamara, CMC type upside written all over it due to his skill set. I'm not saying he's going to turn into either one of those guys, but he catches well and he runs well, which is exactly what those two do. He's looked great as a runner at times this year when he's had the ball. Like I say, he's a fantastic pass catcher. Slow start, I contribute a lot of that to just spotty workload, poor coaching. I think the last few weeks when he was healthy, it really showed that Swift needs the ball in his hands a lot more than he was getting. You got to complement his skill set. You can run the team through him essentially, much like a CMC type. You can feed him in every possible way. As you said, would value him as a top 10 RB. I know that might be a little strong for some, but you factor in youth, upside, PPR, all that stuff. Swift is going to go into this summer, and I'm guessing he's going to be untouchable. Outside of an owner that, I mean, you're not rebuilding, obviously, because he's so young. If you're a contender, you're holding him for next year because of what he might be. I just think he's flat out untouchable no matter what type of team he's on outside of some crazy offer, I mean, why would you be moving Swift this summer with what we've seen?
Mm-hmm. And they're getting a new head coach, I had to imagine. Didn't they fire Matt Patricia like 2 weeks ago? I think they did. So we can expect.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, hopefully any coach that walks into that organization understands how good of a running back DeAndre Swift is. And I agree, it was so frustrating when they kept feeding AP the ball. It's like, dude, you guys spent such a high draft pick on DeAndre Swift. Why aren't you getting him the ball? So, he's been averaging the past 4 to 5 games that he played. Now, I know he was hurt a few weeks ago, but the past 4 to 5 games that he played, he was averaging like 4 receptions for like 30 yards. I mean, in fantasy, that's pretty dang good in a PPR league. That's 7 points right there, not even including his rushing yards. So he has a lot of upside. He's currently ranked the 23rd RB in our half PPR league, and that's coming from a guy who missed like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So value's there. I'm going after Swift the second the offseason hits, and I'm gonna be prepared to give up at least 1 first plus a player or 2 firsts. So fantastic, Tyler. Who do we've got next on the list?
Here's kind of where the list starts getting a little cloudy, a lot less exciting. But we've got Joshua Kelly for the Chargers. 109 carries, 346 yards, 2 teeters, and 148 receiving yards with 0 TDs. The receiving yards stick out a little bit there for me. He has a lot more than I would have thought. But Kelly, kind of like most of the guys that haven't hit extremely well, he's shown well at times this year, but other times he's been a complete afterthought. Especially with Eckler coming back, he's just completely dropped off. I mean, he lost carries to Balaj. I mean, call that whatever you want to call that, but not a super exciting asset. Obviously, Eckler has put up some RB1 numbers when he's been healthy. I still think Eckler's interesting moving forward. I've never been super high on him, so not saying that Kelly has more value because of Eckler. I'm not saying that at all. I think depending on what the Chargers do in the draft, if they bring in more running back competition, that could spell not great for Kelly, obviously. I
Mhm.
think Kelly's just kind of one of those guys that I think he might hang around the NFL. He might come out of nowhere next year and turn into a really good player, but I certainly don't look at Kelly as an exciting asset. Brendan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed in Joshua Kelly. Right out of the gate, he was one of those rookie running backs who surprisingly was getting a lot of carries. Week 1, 12 carries. Week 2, 23 carries. Then, he started to get a few more around, about 10 carries a game. As of the past month, I mean, he started dipping to 7 carries, 4 carries, 0 carries. So I don't know, man. I don't think he's going to be anything. I think he blew his shot when Eckler went down. I mean, if you're going to let Kalen Balaj come in and take carries from you, that's almost like a you have to retire right now type of situation. I mean, I'm convinced that I could outrun Kalen Balaj, bro. I'm being honest with you. I could probably outrun him. That guy is total doo-doo in my opinion. Excuse my French right there. So that's why I don't think Joshua Kelly is anything special. It hurts to see because it's awful when you have a homer, right? Like some running back that you drafted in the 3rd round. Like you're thinking he's going to be Antonio Gibson, or you think that they're going to produce numbers because they're starting to get repetitions. But he just fell off quickly, man, and I don't see him bouncing back. Austin Eckler is far too good of a running back for the Chargers to even think about taking carries away from him right now to give to Joshua Kelly. So I would be comfortable paying, honestly, a 3rd-round pick at this point. I was going to give up my 1st-round pick like week 1, week 2. So happy I didn't, man.
Yeah, it's always risky buying rookie running backs that quickly for that kind of price because yeah, you have no idea what's going to happen. Obviously, Eckler's their guy there, but I'm with
Mm-hmm.
you. I don't see Kelly being much of anything. Maybe he's a good handcuff, but I'm not a big handcuff guy either. So if I owned Kelly, sure, I would hold on to him.
He's a stash
But
for sure.
I'm certainly not going out of the way to add Joshua Kelly in the offseason.
Yeah, listen, the only running back handcuffs that I think are for sure worth owning, obviously Alexander Madison. I mean, that's a no-brainer, assuming
Yep.
he's the number 2 RB. But another guy that's creeping up on my list, and this is really weird for me to say, because the running back that he handcuffs for is a stud. Well, supposed stud. That's Tony Pollard, man. Tony Pollard, I think, is capable of being a starting running back. Now, I know he wasn't on our list today, but he actually looks pretty good when he plays. And if he went to another franchise, I would love to see him get some work, man.
Sure.
hmm Other than that, running back, the cuffs don't mean crap to me. I mean, all you're doing is you're okay in a deep league. I understand, I get it. But other than that, I mean, you're holding
Yeah,
a ton
Tony
of these
Pollard's an
guys.
interesting player. He's shown well.
hmm Yeah, Tyler, can you hear me? Okay.
You're kind of fading in and out, Brendan. So sorry if I cut you off there. I think it just caught up, man. So I'm really
Okay.
sorry
No
if I cut
worries.
you off.
No
I
worries.
didn't
This is exactly how my Saturday nights go. I get fogged up. I start to lag after drinking too much Hennessy. So no worries at all,
for
man.
sure. For sure, man. Yeah, sorry. On my end, you weren't talking, Brendan, so I really do apologize on cutting you off there. Yeah, I was just going to say that I think Tony Pollard's an interesting guy as well. Maybe he's the next Turner the Burner. Maybe he just
hmm
needs his shot. But yeah, going back to what else you said, yeah, you did fog up a little bit Saturday night, huh? A little rough Sunday morning for you.
I think now is a perfect time to disclose that we did not release our Sunday episode before the games. I was personally way too hungover. So we were mixing a lot of drinks on Saturday night. I was doing a Zoom call with a bunch of my buddies from college who I rarely get to see. Tyler, I was mixing Hennessy with wine, with IPAs, with German imports. Dude, it was way too much. I'm happy I did it because I miss my buddies, but I'm not too happy with my choices. That feeling of being hungover the following day is like, oh, I'm not going to get anything done. I feel awful. I'm a terrible human being.
Hey man, we only got 2 more weeks to get through, and then you could be super hungover on Sundays. And hey, I don't know, being a Hennessy guy, have you ever heard of Hennessy and milk?
Hennessy and milk? No, I haven't. Is that some secret formula?
Supposedly it's very, very good. I've never tried it, but I've heard it's fantastic, man. So give it a shot this Saturday night. You might feel a little bit better in the morning.
Hey man, I'm willing to try Henny with anything. Anything's possible at this point in 2020. So cool, man. Don't worry, Tyler. I'll make sure that I drink enough agua the night before and the morning of. We're not going to miss another Sunday episode, especially during this crunch time of a week, playoffs here and whatnot. Tyler, actually, during this quick little intermission of breaking off from fantasy, I do want to tell people our contact information. You can follow us or hit us up on Instagram and Twitter at Halfback Dynasty. You can send us a personal email if you'd like, halfbackdynasty@gmail.com, or you can hit us up at dynastyleaguefootball.com. DLF, my name is McCasties. Tyler is the 5-star legend, Gator Sends. So let us know how we can help out. Tyler, I was browsing through our emails, and, I was getting a little tired of seeing how often I was eating out. I don't know why our Gmail is set up for all of my Grubhub receipts. And let me tell you, man, I was eating a lot of Chicago dogs, Chicago Italian beefs, and a lot of burgers, and I was disappointed, man. So I can't be doing that anymore.
Hey man, you're young. You can afford to do it. What was that second one? Chicago Italian. What was it?
Italian beef, baby. Chicago's got
What,
really good Italian beef out here. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
me, meaning what? Like gravy, like sauce, like meat sauce? What do you mean?
Yeah, no, just Italian beef. You can dip that, or you can put you can do sweet peppers on there. You can do hot peppers, jardinera. You can dip it in the beef sauce. Sometimes you can do like au jus if you ever heard of that. But my goodness, man, Italian beefs out here are so fuego. You also put some mozzarella cheese on that baby, dude. You gotta try. If you're ever in Chicago, I'm taking you to Al's Beefs or Clark Street Dog. We're gonna have you try one, man. It's super good.
I'd love to, man. And my wife is a one-time baller personal chef, and now still a baller chef at home. So yeah, I
Oh,
mean, I've heard of
dope.
au jus, man. Absolutely.
Oh, that's pretty wild, man. You're a very lucky man. So I'm sure you guys have a really good palate, and I'm sure she makes some bomb food. So cool, man. Cool. Anyways,
Yeah.
back to the topic. I am not going to be hungover on Sunday. We will get the Sunday episode out. Boom. I'm putting my heart on it. All right. Tyler, going back, no running back cuffs are worth owning, in my opinion, unless you have a deep league to stash. Besides, as we just discussed, Tony Pollard and Alexander Madison. Maybe there's a couple more here and there, but that could be a whole nother episode. Next up is a very intriguing guy. You were talking about him a little bit during the weekly recap, and that is Zach Moss, running back for the Buffalo Bills. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so he's got 84 carries for 335 yards, 3 TDs, 82 receiving yards for a TD. He's kind of an undercard back. I mean, he was pretty highly thought of coming out. Obviously, he's a bigger back. He's got kind of just a bigger build. He's just a bigger guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to handle more of a workload next year than Singletary. I really do. I just think he's maybe the better running back. Singletary's had quite a few opportunities last year and this year. Not saying he's not a decent running back. I'm just not sure he's a great running back. But hey, maybe they're going for the 1-2 punch. I'm not sure. Um, he'll have more value next year. Maybe not heading into next year, but I think he'll show pretty well. And I think Moss will show well early if you're looking to flip him. Obviously, my theory is give rookies 3 years, but sometimes great deals long. I still think he's around a second round value. I certainly don't think he's worth a first as of now, but I think he could be a sneaky good buy for a second rounder. And yeah, if you're looking for cheaper options, we've talked about it before, Brendan. Running backs are so expensive. in fantasy, any of them that, are really solid that, he could be a cheaper option that pays very, very well come next year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. It's funny because typically when you talk about these young running backs after you watch them a full season, your value interpretation is either they go up in value for you or go down in value. Not many guys will plateau and stay neutral. I think Zach Moss is one of those guys who have stayed neutral throughout the season. I mean, he's shown he can play some good games. He can run the ball, but he hasn't shown enough for me to change my evaluation on him. You nailed it right on the money. Second round pick, I think, is a pretty fair offer. If you have multiple seconds, I'd float him out. I'd float one out because realistically, in these second rounds, you're probably getting a decent shot at a good wide receiver. A lot of players nowadays in fantasy football, a lot of owners, they'll reach on running backs. Like they'll for sure reach on running backs in the first round. I mean, look at Keyshawn Vaughn. People were taking him at like the 1-6 before Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb. I mean, that's got to feel really bad right now. So that's my point. I mean, you know, do you give up? Let's say you own 3 second-round picks, which I'm sure some people do in some leagues. Okay, well, are you going to get 3 shots at a wide receiver in the second round, or are you going to get 2 shots at a wide receiver and you're gonna trade your second-round pick for Zach Moss, who already's been in the league a year, he's established in the offense. So I feel more than comfortable giving up the second-round pick. I'd feel more comfortable buying him for a second round than selling him for a second round. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Totally agree.
Yeah, and we'll see what the Bills do. I mean, they're a team that's, I think, still finding their identity. I think when they have shown that they can beat teams like the Steelers, I think they're emerging into kind of that elite tier of organizations right now. They're showing that they can contend with better teams. And I think by this time next year, I think we're going to start talking about Josh Allen being like a top 3 QB, as long as he doesn't get hurt, man. The franchise is in very good shape right now, very young. Defense is really good. I'm a big fan of the Bills right now. Big bandwagoner, that is.
Yeah, I think your point. I mean, I think that leads more into that Zach Moss might be a nice buy low because their offense is trending towards being maybe not elite, but a very, very powerful one. I
Mhm.
think they need to maybe add another wideout.
Mhm.
Obviously Gabriel Davis has come on decently well, but John Brown can't stay on the field. So I don't envision them adding a running back. I really don't. I think Moss and Singletary are both solid enough or interesting enough, intriguing enough that NFL teams, they just don't care about running backs anymore. So I think he's a safe bet to see a pretty solid workload for an offense that's going to put up a lot of points. The one knock I have on Zach Moss, unfortunately, due to his size, you wouldn't think this would be a problem. Is I don't think most goal line carries seem to go to Josh Allen. So that's the big deal for fantasy with the running backs. If your guy isn't getting carries within the 5-yard line, that takes a lot of value away.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. I can't stand, for example, when the Browns are like first down on like the 2-yard line and they freaking put Kareem Hunt in there, or whatever their breaks are, however they do it. I can't stand when running backs on my fantasy team aren't the ones getting the goal line carries. It absolutely blows. It is devastating. So I couldn't
I
agree
hear you.
more right there, man.
Yeah, I hear you there, buddy.
All right, so now we're moving into kind of another tier. I think this is kind of like the final tier of RBs. Don't know much about these players, but there's something to watch here, and you want to follow these guys along because they have shown a few sparks here and there. I'm going to clump them together. LaMichael Pirine and Salvin Ahmed, both guys that you probably didn't know too much about going into the season, especially Salvin Ahmed. I mean, I remember a few weeks ago, Tyler, you were saying he actually had a really good collegiate career. So very intriguing there. But what are your thoughts on these guys? Do they have a shot at production? Are the running backs ahead of them on the depth chart? Are they trustworthy? Are they leaving the franchise? And just overall, what do you think?
I think it's kind of tough to value either one of these guys because they both play on teams that are I mean, the Jets are horrendous. So I think P. Ryan could very easily have a decent role next year. I mean, why they would add a running back is beyond me when every single position on their team needs help.
Hmm.
P. Ryan's got 55 carries for 202 yards and 2 TDs and 49 receiving yards. So who knows what happens with Gore? I mean, I can't imagine he'll be back, but plus you got the Gase factor. So who knows with P. Ryan? It's hard to say. I think if you could get him for a third rounder, I could see adding P. Ryan because, again, this team needs help all over the field. Why would you add a running back? Why would you sign a running back? Who knows? So Michael P. Ryan, I think, could have sneaky value next year in fantasy as far as production. He's probably not going to be worth a ton on the market.
Hmm.
And that team's still going to be bad, but maybe he's got some nice flex appeal or bye week appeal. As far as Ahmed goes, he's got 40 carries for 166 yards and TD and 36 yards through the air. Definitely another undercard back. We'll see what happens with Gaskin. Showed pretty well, though, when Gaskin went out. So, again, with these kind of tiers of running backs, you really don't know what to expect. But I could see Ahmed and Gaskin both getting plenty of work next year. So I think Ahmed has a solid skill set, and we'll kind of see what happens there. Another player that if you can add for cheap, why not?
I think that's one of the biggest things I'm eager to see how it plays out is what will the Miami Dolphins do with Miles Gaskin? I mean, same idea with what were the Jaguars going to do with James Robinson. Both organizations, I mean, they should keep both running backs on super cheap contracts, which they will on their rookie deals. But James Robinson's obviously
Sure.
sealed his fate. There's no way he's not going to be the starter next year. I'm still not sold that Miles Gaskin will be the starter of the Dolphins next year, but I think there's an outside shot. I think there's just as good of a shot of Miles Gaskin being the starting running back as Salvin Ahmed. I mean, any one of these guys could step up during training
Sure.
camp. So very intriguing. I mean, you want guys like
Absolutely.
this on your roster, especially if you're going to get them for cheap because they could be the next up. There's no reason not to have them on your roster. So I'm not saying that keep them on the roster as cuffs because as a cuff, they're virtually nothing. But you would keep
Sure.
them on the roster as an outside shot at hopefully getting a starting running back, which a lot of people did with Gaskin this year. Nobody thought
Sure.
Gaskin would eventually be the starter over Matt Breida or uh, Howard, right? So I don't know. Outside shots are always a great deal, especially when you have them on your team and they hit. So perfect, Tyler. Really appreciate your analysis here, your analysis, and really am taking down notes. I'm really excited to use all this info and make moves and go after the same people you are. Try to one up you in these trades to make my roster better. So let's move in. Do you have anything else you want to say about the running backs? We hit a lot of the running backs, and we hit close to 10 rookie running backs between the two episodes. And next week, we'll for sure talk about the young wide receivers. I don't really see a point in starting with the young wide receivers. We might as well just wait, catch our breath, see one more week play out, get a new thought and analysis form there. But you have anything else about the running backs you want to say?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a pretty intriguing class moving forward. It really is. I mean, you've got a potential to have some very, very talented running backs heading into next year coming out of this class, and some undercard guys that I think are going to make some noise. But yeah, like you said, Brendan, this I think the no looking back's going to turn into the new Friday the 13th series. Man, we might have 10 episodes on this or something. So. Yeah,
Good.
I don't think we get into the wide receivers. I think that's probably going to take some time because I think there's some really good assets. I think it'll spark some good chat between you and I. So, hey, man, we're down to your segment here, man. Your favorite, The Wire, baby.
The Wire, WYR. Would you rather? Tyler, I've prepared some more for you. I don't know if you've prepared anything for me, but I'm very eager in hopes that you can answer some questions that I have about my own roster and who to start this week in the playoffs, or just in general. I came up with some pretty good ones that should stump you. So, did you prepare anything for me?
I figured you'd have some head scratchers, some stumpers for me. So,
Good, good. Well, if you're ready, man, I'm ready.
yeah, man, I like I said, I love the creativity of last week with doing the Would You Rather start in the playoffs, man. I thought that was fantastic.
Good. Good. Yeah, for those listening, if you're new to our show, typically the wire segment was who would you rather own between two players and give a small explanation why. But we switched it up this past week since we knew playoffs were starting in your leagues. So it's going to be who would you rather start on your roster. So Tyler, here we go. First one I've got. Would you rather start Melvin Gordon against the Buffalo Bills or not Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette versus the Atlanta Falcons, assuming Ronald Jones is out? So Fournette is stepping up into the lead back role. Fournette or Gordon?
As long as Gordon goes, he's questionable as well, kind of banged up his shoulder. As long as Gordon goes, I would take Gordon here. I
Okay.
just don't trust Fournette. Fournette, I don't know what to expect from him. Maybe Keyshawn Vaughn gets some looks this week as
Keyshawn
well. I
Vaughn.
would still roll. Yeah, I would still roll Gordon.
Okay, interesting, interesting. I that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Actually,
Yeah,
a
it's
buddy
tough.
of mine, he actually was texting me and wanted me to kind of explain some thoughts behind this. And I think both have a shot to have a decent week. I think Gordon has a safer floor, if that makes
Me
sense,
too.
even though he's had some pretty bad games. But I think Leonard Fournette could break out and maybe find the end zone one or two times. Wouldn't feel confident with both. I'd hope that these guys would be slotting into my running back two spot or a flex. But if Ronald Jones is out, that's definitely intriguing if Leonard Fournette can step up to the plate. So,
Yeah, yeah, Brendan, I think this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. You start your best roster. Fournette
mhm.
has not been good at all this season. Most of us are probably in the semifinals. Now is not a time, in my opinion, to gamble on upside or what could be. I'm just going to point out to the listeners one more time. I think I told you about this in a different episode. I started Deshaun. I'm not sure that's his first name. Anyways, it was Foster over Larry Johnson in the finals one year, and Foster scored 2.5 and Larry Johnson at 38. So
Woo!
stick with the guy that has played well throughout the season.
Wow. Wow. There you have it. I mean, Tyler,
Whoops.
you're really showing your age, man. That's many moons ago.
Yeah, Larry Johnson, man, was what a beast, you know.
Cool. All right, I respect that. I respect that. Next up, I got another set of running backs. Would you rather start Kenyon Drake versus the Eagles or Kareem Hunt versus the Giants?
That's a really good one. I would probably start Hunt. I know that Drake has looked pretty solid the last few weeks. He doesn't have the competition, obviously, that Hunt does, but I think Hunt put up just south of 80 yards receiving this weekend. That's a big deal. Obviously, there was 8,000 points in that
That
game,
was a
which
high
played
scoring
into
game.
that. Yeah, but I noticed Hunt still gets a lot of goal line looks too, even with
Mhm.
Chubb. So I think I would gamble on Hunt here. I think he's the better player overall. Um, to me, that's starting your best lineup is Hunt.
Yeah, did you know in our half PPR league, Chubb is ranked like 7 overall at the running back position. Hunt is ranked 8. So let's not forget
Yeah,
that Kareem Hunt still is a pretty valuable running back. I think it's absolutely disrespectful to Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb that the Browns extended him. I mean, absolutely heartbreaking. So he could have gone to another franchise and just
right.
absolutely dominated, been a top 5 running back. So what a shame. But I agree. I think Hunt is the right call there. Tyler, let's move into a couple quarterbacks. This is basically an issue that I run into every single week because I have to pick one of these two QBs. Deshaun Watson versus Indianapolis or Justin Herbert versus Las Vegas. Tyler, you there? Tyler, I see you moving, but you're fogging up, my man. Too many booze drinking, too much alcohol. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now, Brendan. I believe it was Watson or Jalen Hurts. Is that correct?
Well, actually, that wasn't it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts there. Yeah, would you start Deshaun Watson versus the Indianapolis Colts or Jalen Hurts versus the Arizona Cardinals? That's a good one, man.
Again, with it probably being the semifinals, I'm rolling Watson here. I love Jalen Hurts, man. I really do. I'm not going down that path, even with a very tough matchup for Watson. A banged up. He's got nobody to throw to, but I would
Mhm.
still rather. I don't know, man. I've lost so many times in the playoffs playing these guys that could play well, and I've learned you got to live with it if your best players don't win the game. I would still
Mhm.
play Watson. So, what was the question though, Brendan? I'm sorry, man. I'm not sure what's
Hey,
going on with our connection here.
it's all good, man. It's all good. Again, I have no issue reminiscing on how my Saturday nights are. It gets to show the viewers kind of what I see through my own lens. So, yeah. So the original question was Deshaun Watson versus the Indianapolis Colts or Justin Herbert versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Tyler, did you get that? Were you able to hear that?
I heard Deshaun Watson again. That was it.
All right, all right. They don't want you to hear this, man. The platform does not want you to hear the other guy. Okay, you ready?
Right?
Deshaun Watson versus the Colts or Justin Herbert versus the Raiders?
See, that's why I thought it was Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Man, again, I would still probably go with Watson. I mean, I know Herbert has been super, super good this year. When Herbert has been off, he has just been a disaster. So
Mhm.
I would probably still go with Watson here.
Sure. Very interesting. I don't have an answer for that yet. I'll figure it out on Saturday or whenever the games are. I have no idea who I'm going to start since I own both of them. Gonna have to play it by ear. So cool. Tyler, the last one I've got is actually a pair of wide receivers. Your boy Justin Jefferson versus Chicago or Amari Cooper versus San Francisco.
Despite the tough matchup, I'm still rolling Justin Jefferson here. I think him and Cooper are extremely close as far as points they've produced. So it goes back to my best roster. I'm not sure there is one is better than the other, but
Mhm.
um, and that comes down to I know Cousins hasn't been fantastic. He's actually been pretty good the last handful of weeks here. I would gamble on more Cousins over Dalton. I guess is more what that comes down to. So give me Jefferson. Jefferson had a very quiet game last week, so I expect a much different, bigger output this week.
The last few times in the Hot Takes Bowl prediction segment, when you predicted a wide receiver to have a blowout game, a blow up game, whatever you want to say, after a down week, they absolutely destroyed. If I recall correctly, you called out DK Metcalf after he had a pretty bad week. He exploded for over 100 yards and I think a tutty. And then the same thing with Devontae Adams, had a down week, and then you predicted he would
Yeah.
explode for 2 touchdowns and 500 receiving yards. So if I have Justin Jefferson, I'm playing him for sure because you just said he will have a huge game after a down week. Perfect, Tyler. That's going to do it for the Would You Rather segment. Tyler, amazing content as always. Really appreciate doing this with you, man, and you doing the show with me. Can't believe an hour has already passed, and we're actually on time, believe it or not. I mean, we're right on the money. This might be the first time this has ever happened. So excellent stuff. Tyler, before I sign us off, is there anything you want to say to the listeners?
Yeah, I
Besides,
appreciate.
hold on, besides saying start your best roster.
Yeah, how many times can I say that? At least I can say I followed my own advice, and hey, I'm out, but I followed my own advice. My closing statements, Brendan, really is just I'm sure a lot of us were handed a reminder of just how tough it is to win a dynasty title. A lot of you probably had great seasons like myself. You're already done in round one. As I mentioned, I've gone 21-5 over the past 2 years. I'm 0-2 in the playoffs. So, hey, the regular season really doesn't mean anything. You just got to get in. Um, Let me find myself here. As we mentioned last week, it's really important to take a hard look at your team and figure out your goals next year and beyond, and figure out what you want to do as you're moving forward here. Sometimes, I mean, I've been thinking about Brendan. You can attest. I've been trying to make trades for weeks. I've not been overly convinced in my team, regardless of my record. So I've kind of had an off-season game plan going, regardless of win or lose. For everybody else who hasn't, kind of let the dust settle. It can be extremely disappointing to lose, especially in the first round if you had a good team, had a good record. So for those of you that haven't been projecting forward, just take some time. Take a month or two, let the dust settle, let fantasy get out of your head before you start making moves, because sometimes you can make some bad moves. Other than that, to everybody still rolling into round two here, into the semis, congrats. I hope you do well this week. And Brendan, in my little notes here, man, I just want to say, outside of my congratulations, my final thought was play your best lineup. So I'm going to throw that in there just because I already had it down. So
Good. I knew it, man. I knew it was coming. So, hey, at least you're offering the best advice in the community. There's really no reason not to roll your best roster out there. And I agree. You lose with pride, you win with pride. So that's awesome, Tyler. Thank you to everybody who listened today. If we don't catch you on these next couple of days on Twitter or via email, happy holidays. We'll hopefully see you on Sunday. Good luck and stay smooth. And just remember, you're in this for life.